Finally, after all these years, I'm catching up with Jack. I don't know what to feel about this, Jack, because there's a part of me that is very happy that we can finally catch up, and there's a part of me that's deeply saddened, and you probably don't know why.
No, I think you're going to have to tell all your viewers why you're emotional.
I'm saddened because my mother would have wanted to sit next to me now because she was one of your great fans, and Isidingo was her thing. We couldn't talk about in that time. It was Isidingo was on, don't speak, there's Jack, there's everybody, and now she's gone, and now you're sitting you're sitting in the house but on a different screen.
Well, I'm dedicating my time on the show today to her.
Thank you, and I really appreciate that. What shocked me when I looked at your biography was everyone's biography has something in it that people generally don't know when they see you on TV, and that was served in the police force, studied in the law fraternity, and that really surprised me because I thought that I've seen it and done it all, and then you come along with something like serving in the police force. So I want to start at the beginning, where it all started for you, and who is Jack Devnarain?
Yeah, I think I'm a man who is not limited by people's expectations of me. I live by my ethical code, by the things that drive and motivate my activism. I am incensed by injustice. It's a spur for a lot of my action. So I don't believe that anyone should ever be contained by people's definitions of them. Try not to fit into the box that you've been supplied. I don't think people are meant to be boxed in terms of what they are supposed to achieve in this life. I think in my world, in my head, there are a number of things that need to be addressed if we are serious as humanity about making life better for all people. So at the time that I joined the police, I was a young man. It was 1994. It was the start, the very beginning of our constitutional democracy. I believed in social justice. I believed in law. I believed in revising the injustices that had been perpetrated by the apartheid regime and creating the balance that was needed in society and instilling trust in our justice system again, and to try and understand what actual justice was supposed to be. And if it meant that I was going to be out in the field exercising law enforcement, exercising myself as a person, as a personality, and as a human being, I thought that was time well served. It was a huge learning curve for me, and I'm deeply grateful to all those people that I learned from, all my seniors in the police, all my mentors, and it was 9 years of my life that I think also helped to provide the foundation of my work as an actor.
Jack, that's rather interesting because as you're speaking, something comes to mind, and I think that many people, when they see television personalities, or whether you're a television host or you're an actor on screen, for some reason they see that, and that tends to be all that they eventually see at times. Did you ever, at some point when you got into television, did you ever feel that now you could take that power base that you were building up around you, that following, you could use that to go through the inhibitions of your life in terms of your pursuit for justice, that you could now marry the two and have a tangible outcome? Because in my view, some people join television to sign autographs, and then there's people that join television because they want to effect change in this world, and it's just the right concoction that can effect that change. Did you find that space or marry that too?
It wasn't my intention at all. My intention was to become a part of a team that was delivering fantastic entertainment to a diverse South African audience. My intention was to create a character that was believable. I intended to practice my skills as a performing artist, to refine my skill set as an actor, as a professional, really was to deliver the best work that I could as an actor. It was only years later that I started to understand the deeply entrenched injustices, the abuse, the exploitation that's intrinsic to the film TV and live event theatre production industry that my eyes started to open to what needed to be done and what my role in that fight should be. So at that point, I realized how fortuitous it was that my journey from the police into the world of performance actually was my biggest asset. So it reinforced in my head that we all have a journey in life. Um, whether you're a performer, a professional, whether you're a student, whether you are a corporate executive, whether you are working in the service industry or in mining or whatever. It's really about you occupying that space with your full integrity and conscience so that as opportunities open in your life, you must be able to draw on your experiences that you gained in those years to say, I know how to make this situation better. I know how to help the people in need. I know how to make the world a better place because the gift of my journey means that I'm able to draw on my lessons that I learned there and I'm able to apply them in my current situation. That's pretty much what I discovered in my journey as an actor, which is now, decades old, more than 20 years into the industry, and I'm seeing the value of what I've learned along the way, and I'm seeing the opportunities that I'm still able to learn or to develop myself and to apply my experience in order to try to help the industry to improve.
I think you aptly putting something that's always playing in my mind, and I think that sometimes we look at life, and especially youth today, and through very trying periods in our life right now, through global pandemics and whatever that might be, we find that people say, I've made mistakes, I shifted from this industry to that industry, I've done that, I've studied 2 years of that and I gave it up and I moved on. But what you said a couple of minutes ago just encompasses and encapsulates what I always believe, and that is that you draw on everything from the past. There is no such thing as mistakes. It's just this thing, and you take something small and you plug it into what you're doing today. But you'd never have known about that small item or you'd never had that little skill that you had to plug into this bigger picture if you didn't traverse that particular journey. So that's exactly what you're saying. But I think many people today, we're very jumpy at this point. We feel unsettled at any time, not realizing that where you are right now is part of the picture where you need to be later on in life. I want to go a little bit into your family life, the children and all of that, because again, we only see the people on screen and forget about the life that they really have.
I suppose my experience in the industry has taught me to maintain a certain reserve about my family. My children are young. My daughter is 16, and my son is 21. And of course, I would always consider that to be young simply because it's still my duty as dad to protect them and to maintain the confidentiality of our lives, the privacy of our day-to-day lives as well. My wife works in the corporate world, and I suppose it's because I know how cruel people can be when they make assumptions about what it must mean to be living with an actor. People assume that because I'm an actor, I must be super rich. I must be a very wealthy businessman, somehow related to the characters that have made made my characters household names. And it's very difficult to try and revise that kind of notion that people have of me, even though they may not realize that I'm not necessarily my character.
Great.
So people make these assumptions, and they also make assumptions, therefore, about members of my family because they assume that, this must be the life that you're leading. And it's not a burden that I want to pass on to my family. It's not something that they need to explain to others in order to justify the way that we live. It's not something that they need to have to defend in terms of, you have an impression of me and your impression is wrong, but I really don't see that it's my job to correct you because you created that impression out of your own fantasy. And yes, to a large extent, this world as a professional actor is often superficial and plastic. It's contrived to make people believe that we live in this wonderland of glamour and we live a charmed life of meeting, famous people and facing down the paparazzi as we walk on the red carpet to another glittering gala event. And I think that's largely an assumption perpetuated by what Hollywood likes people to think. But nothing is further from the truth.
Of course.
Some people might have actually grasped that. Not everyone has. And it's not like I'm going out to show people that, well, I think you're wrong. You need to take a look at the hard nuts and bolts of this deeply divided, unequal, and unjust industry, because it's not always that. And people need to manage their own expectations. So I'm careful about exposing my family to all of this. And fortunately, they are always very understanding when it comes to the demands of my work and the kind of commitments that I have to meet, the sacrifices that I make, which often includes sacrificing time with them in order to continue my work, not just as an actor, but as an industry activist, which, of course, you do as a volunteer. Nobody pays you to be a professional activist. So this is something I care deeply about. So, it takes a toll on my family, and if it wasn't for their understanding, I don't think I would be quite the kind of person, professional activist that I am today.
You made me think about a particular example when I used to sit back sometimes and walk in, and my mom used to be watching Days of Our Lives. So one of her favorite horror characters was Stefano de Mera, if you remember. And so I always wondered, and I always told her, what if you would meet Stefano one day? And she would say, no, but he's a bad guy, and XYZ. So she would have this perception because she's watching him for years, busy conning and thieving everybody. And so that's all she knew about him. So I can only imagine walking around in Sandton sometimes. People are going to blame you for the things that you've done on screen, And I've got a similar problem. I've got a similar problem at the moment. This week I've got Professor Abdul Karim coming onto the show to talk about the COVID-related matters. Now, while I thought it was a good thing because people need to understand what the experts are saying, the rest of the Bill Gates people are busy attacking and saying, how can you be part of that? Why did you believe this? So which way do you go, Jack? My mom used to say, you can only please some people sometime, but you cannot please everybody all the time. And that's really what it is.
Yes, and I think, and not to dictate to you, the direction you should take at all. I mean, you're a career professional as well. But certainly I think you've established yourself as an important, credible name for exploring these ideas. So I don't think it's right for people to criticize you for the guests that you have. I think you, in your position and in the direction that you've chosen, you have a duty to explore as many ideas as possible. And it's something that I absolutely admire, and it's something I applaud. I think people who consume media need to be a lot more critical, analytical about the kind of content they consume. And why shouldn't we be listening to the acknowledged experts and the professionals in the field, people who have earned the right to articulate their ideas, their research, and share with us their learning, their knowledge of whatever their field of expertise really is. I think if you need to be listening to anyone, it should be people who are recognized globally as experts. So I think Good call on Professor Karim.
As you mentioned early on, every industry has its challenges. Every industry is met with different issues and concerns during different times. And how that is handled is another matter. And also the role of activists in every space has to be there. There's got to be a thesis, there's got to be antithesis, so that there is a synthesis in all of that happens to better the worlds of various people. And yes, I think actors and people in the media across the board can be exploited in various ways. And yes, that is coupled with issues like expectations and public expectation that hides sometime and masks some of the issues that lays in the background. How's that been going for you? How's the organization going, and how's the work and the traction of the work going?
The South African Guild of Actors was formed 11 years ago, and I was part of a team of interested professional actors that joined later on in the course of the next month or two that followed. I then became part of the working team. And from the working team, I was part of the interim board. And from the interim board, after the first year, I then was elected chairman. So that was the genesis of that organization. It had to be registered as a non-profit organization, so we are all volunteers. And I think we are driven as professionals to try and take ownership of what the performance industry really is. The inherent injustice in our industry is that you've got thousands of performers around the country for decades. Some have earned accolades for their work on a global stage, and others are content to continue working in local community theatres and developing other talent skills, putting out smaller productions, and all of that actually forms the lifeblood of our industry. But what's disturbing to me is if these people truly are at the heart of the industry, why is it that their voices are not being heard in the growth, the development, and the structural aspect of the industry? Why is it that when people are developing policy that regulates the industry, those are the voices that are not being heard? And for me, it's an injustice that just cannot continue. But at the same time, how do we educate those voices so that when they are taking up the positions of authority, where they carrying a mandate from a broad group of other performers, when they are helping to develop the regulations, the structure of the industry, when they are helping to advise on the policies that help the industry to grow and to prosper and to thrive, do they themselves have sufficient knowledge of the industry in order to create the right kind of policies? And that is exactly where SAGA is sitting, is that we are saying we need to educate actors, to make them aware of what is the regulatory environment that manages contracts, for example. What do broadcasters want from you as an actor? What do producers want from you as an actor? How do you as an actor grow? Are you looking at yourself and your career only in the South African context, or do you have a global idea of where you might be as a professional? So these are the conversations we are having, and we are challenging actors to say, what do you know about your industry? Because, Faizal, it is absolutely alarming to me, especially being, working this closely with actors as part of my work as chairman of SAGA, is that people don't know. People think it's okay not to sign a contract as a performer. They think, well, it's going to make people angry or frustrate them, or I'm going to lose my chances of being hired for this gig if I have to, suggest that we sign a contract between us. People actually think that. People actually think that, if we disagree on the terms of a contract, that we shouldn't now sit down and negotiate.
And that you might lose the role or might not be selected for the role.
Yes.
Yes.
And, we are constantly comparing ourselves to more developed economies like the US and the UK, and we're saying, why are our industries not like those industries? Well, I'll tell you why. Because those actors stood together and they demanded regulation in the form of statute, so that the lawmakers actually had to sit down and create laws that protect actors. They actually demanded the right to unionize, the right to sit down and engage in collective bargaining. South Africa has none of those rights. We do not have any of those rights. And when you approach actors to say, well, let's try and create these rights so that we force government to listen to us, so that there are laws that actually govern the relationships between broadcasters, actors, and producers, actors will agree. Absolutely. Yeah, let's do it. And at the moment it comes time to start doing the hard work, where you're walking the hard yards, where you're generating the ideas, the proposal documents, sending the emails, attending the meetings, taking the minutes, registering your company, your organization, finding your mandate, developing the constitution. Um, when you have all of that, suddenly actors are less interested.
This is just an assumption on my side. Generally, when I find you a bit different from many actors that I meet, and I've been in broadcast for some years as the CEO of a TV channel. And what has happened was I've been on screen and the administrative head of a broadcaster. So I needed to marry the two. And so when I walk out of the studio, then that administration in my head takes over because I've got a company to run, and there's legalities, there's finances, there's HR, and all those things that goes into that. But then some presenters that would walk in only had the creative spin in their minds. They were never concerned about anything else but being creative on the show, presenting the show, and walking off. Sometimes do you not think that it's maybe the goodness in some of the actors, where they are just creative people, that they are being exploited because they maybe don't have a little streak in them that wants to focus on contracts and finances? They're just too creative, and sometimes they're very polarized in the way that they see the world. Like, I've got an actor friend that will just jump up in the middle of a meeting and decide to do a performance. And I'm like, can we just get serious for a moment? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree. And hopefully all people involved in the industry are creative to the extent that they can actually earn a living and survive. What all actors need to understand, though, is that until we create a regulatory environment that offers an equitable distribution of the sharing of wealth, the sharing of rights, the sharing of obligations, until we achieve that, all the creativity in the world is going down the drain, because you are unable to protect yourself. You are unable to protect your intellectual property. You are unable to protect your income. You are unable to connect that income with the economy as a whole. So with all of this, I absolutely get people are not focused on the administrative side or the regulatory side. I get it. Then you go and you mandate somebody to represent your voice.
Excellent idea.
And that's something that people need to be aware of. You don't have to go and do it yourself. Mandate the people who will represent you at the right level, who are serious enough, and who are honest enough to carry your message through in all their statements and in all their work. So this is something that's important to Saga, and it's something I encourage actors to do. Join Saga, because we have a bunch of volunteers like myself who are willing to carry that load, and we are willing to take it to government and beyond. We're willing to take it into the partnerships with other actor unions around the world. We are willing to take it into all our lobbying efforts and to every proposal we draft. And every time we go into Parliament, we are carrying your voice. So come and join us. And, we are the ones who will try to help when everybody else will sit back and complain.
Phenomenal that you're offering that type of support, and I hope that people take up that particular offer on your side, because you're right in saying that there are people that's doing it on a volunteer basis. Why aren't? And in unity, you'd be strength, of course, and that's where you need to be,
absolutely.
Of course. And I think that when people single themselves out and they have their own little fights everywhere, that's just going nowhere slowly. And through that unity, perhaps you can go to the next space. Jack, it's a tricky time in the world. In conclusion, what is your message? I know that the image that people have of being an actor, when they sit in front of the mirror in the morning, thinking that they should be signing autographs and the paparazzis are running after them, and therefore they sometimes buy a ring light and start doing funny things on social media, is very different to the very solid journey of being an actor that you walked, and the accomplishments of people like yourself where you've gone to. So therefore I'm asking someone like you, what's your advice, especially to our youth that are thinking of becoming actors?
I think this is such an important opportunity for me, and I'm not going to waste it, Faizal. My message to the youth is you are coming into an industry that is already structured against you. You need to change that.
Wow, that's amazing that you just said that.
I think, we people of my generation, we came into it. We knew it was structured against us. And the question that we have to answer to you is, what did we do to change it in order to prepare you for the industry? And I am absolutely ashamed to say that we haven't done enough. We have not done enough to structure the industry so that it's fair to you, so that you are earning from the work that you produce, that you are earning from your intellectual property, that you will be protected in the contracts that you sign. We haven't done enough. And I'm asking for your support. Come and join SADA, join me, so that I have your voice, so that I can use your strength and take that solidarity to make the changes that we need. So in as much as I might have failed you, I'm going to put it right. And I want to put it right for you and with you. Why? Because the generation that comes after you, they cannot be failed. And you will have to answer to them.
Jack, I just saw something else in you right now, and that was that fervor and that energy and that passion and that compassion. And sometimes on different areas where I serve as an activist too, I sound that way, and people say, are you upset, or is something wrong with you? Did you have a bad morning? Then I say, no, not at all. I'm actually quite fine. But when you speak about a subject that's close to your heart and you want to see change in that space, then that's what you sound like. You can hear it coming out and you can feel it coming out. So I thank you for taking up that on behalf of South African actors, because it is time that they start getting regulated. It is time that they stop being exploited, because otherwise, if someone like yourself, like you rightly said, leaves that, only another generation will come and be exploited and walk in the same path that many of you have walked before. So thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time and your effort. And I want to extend an invitation to Saga to come onto the show at any time that you request, when you have any major updates, to let us know, so that we can syndicate that to the rest of the media.
I appreciate it, Faizal. Thank you for your time. Thanks for having me on the show. I dedicate my interview today to Auntie Abida Said, who I know has always supported me, and right now, looking down at this interaction between me and her son, and possibly having the biggest smile on her face right now. In her memory, I participate in this wonderful interview. I hope you enjoy it too.